Hello and welcome. My name is Chenxing Han, and I'm a writer, educator, and advocate for the Asian American Buddhist community. I'm really honored and delighted to get to connect with you, even if it's only through this online format, through the everydaybuddhist.org guest speaker series. So I thought today, for this time together, I do wish we could be, together in the same physical space, but I think it's also really incredible how we can connect across time, across geographic space, and I hope that you'll use the comments feature of this website and ask questions and let me know what you think. But I thought today I could share a little bit about my book, Be the Refuge, Raising the Voices of Asian American Buddhists. And I wanted to share a bit about the journey of how this book came to be, a little bit about what's inside the book, and also in this past about year and a half since it was published, what has come from this book. So, I think often for big long-term projects, this book took about 9 years from its inception to its publication. For these long projects, when we look back and trace the dots in retrospect, we often find multiple origin stories. And one origin story for this book is, I'd say, loneliness. So I was born in China, in Shanghai, and then I grew up in Pennsylvania and Washington State before moving to the San Francisco Bay Area. And I grew up, as is quite common for the children of Chinese immigrants, non-religious. My parents are atheist. But I started getting interested in Buddhism really in high school, and then I took a gap year between high school and college, got to spend time living in China and traveling through Hong Kong and Thailand and Nepal and Tibet. And so those planted the seeds of interest in Buddhism. But I say that this book kind of began with some loneliness because as I began to explore Buddhism, especially in the Bay Area, while I was a student at Stanford University, I started noticing a kind of lack of young adult Asian American Buddhists like myself. So I would go to meditation centers mostly that were predominantly white convert Buddhist communities. And I would notice that there weren't so many young people and there weren't so many people of color or folks like myself who are Asian American. And so it just made me wonder, Buddhism is a religion that obviously has deep roots, 2,500 plus years in Asia. It's a religion that's been stewarded by Asians in Asia and then also Asians in diaspora around the world. So it just made me curious, where are the Asians and Asian heritage folks in these communities? And then when I went to, for example, the local Cambodian or Vietnamese or Taiwanese or Chinese temple, there would be a lot of often grandmas and some grandpas and some grandkids, but I would often joke, between the ages of 5 and 50, I wasn't really meeting a lot of other young folks. So it just got me wondering, where are all the young adult Asian American Buddhists? What's on their minds? And for many of you who are listening here, I think you might have some familiarity with Jodo Shinshu Buddhism. And actually, sort of embarrassingly, in my explorations of Buddhism, I hadn't really yet encountered this group. So here I was sort of feeling lonely and also kind of feeling curious. And I started reading more in both popular Buddhist magazines like Buddhadharma, Shambhala Sun, which is now called Lion's Roar, Tricycle magazine, and also reading kind of academic books. And I kept running into this story of two Buddhisms, this idea that there's a white convert Buddhism on the one hand and an Asian immigrant Buddhism on the other hand. I think if I can find it, there's a section in the book where I write about it. So maybe I'll read just a little section there. The dominant story of Buddhism in America is that there are two Buddhisms, the Buddhism of white converts and the Buddhism of Asian immigrants. What differentiates these, quote, two distinct and mutually isolated brands of Buddhism? We are told, for starters, that Western/white Buddhists focus on meditation practice in keeping with their rationalist and modernist bent, whereas Asian/Asian American Buddhists prefer the traditional and devotional rituals of chanting and bowing. It's not hard to guess which group is more likely to be dismissed as superstitious and which group is more likely to be celebrated as scientific. though hardly its intended impact, the To Buddhism story too easily lends itself to less than flattering portrayals of Asian American Buddhists. So I remember just thinking, well, where do I fit in this two Buddhisms dichotomy as someone who wasn't raised Buddhist but who is Asian American? And where do our Black and Latinx and mixed race and Native Buddhist friends fit into this typology, which was really created, half a century ago? And so it just made me wonder, what are the kind of stories that we're telling?